Hello. Uh, I see you picked a very controversial topic this week. This is one I can see some people getting very upset over. I also say this is the first time I've heard superheroes compared to masturbation. Um, but finally, I feel there's a topic I at least know a little about. I've been in and out of comics over the years, so there are a ton of people who know a lot more than me. And with, between Batman and Superman, over 150 years of history, what I know was very little in the whole grand scheme of things. But I'll give you my opinions on it. So I know you were saying who is more complex, and in that you got into who is more relatable. And at first glance, Batman is a human, while Superman is an alien with, godlike powers. But I would actually say if you get into relatable, I actually feel Superman is more relatable. Um, as you said, he has a regular job. He grew up in a fairly regular family. You know, both of them were orphans, but while Superman is the last, or was the last, you know, living person from his planet, he never knew that planet. He grew up on Earth, and he is human, whereas Batman witnessed his parents killed before his eyes and was raised by his butler. Um, and something I don't remember where I heard this, whether it was in a comic or someone talking about him, but the idea with Batman that Bruce Wayne is really the mask. He's really Batman, and he's just Bruce Wayne because he needs to for certain parts of his life. Um, Whereas Clark Kent or Superman, I feel, would rather be Clark Kent, but he feels this duty because he has this power. If you steal the old Uncle Ben, Peter Parker, Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility. I think he feels this duty to use his power, but I feel he would rather just be Clark Kent. Um, that being said, do you think Superman is complex in the fact that while he grew up on this planet, as I said, I feel he wants to be Clark Kent. I remember watching movie fights you did a couple of weeks ago where you compared him to Martian Manhunters, the last members of their planet. And I disagree with that. I disagree with the similarities because, like I said, Superman didn't grow up on Krypton, whereas everyone Martian Manhunter knew died. But that being said, he is this god among men, so there is some complexity there. But I feel you do have to go with Batman being more complex. The stuff I talked about before, is this he's this loner, um, yet he does have this weird extended family. Alfred may be his butler, but he's his friend. He's his father. He's you know taken in three kids who aren't related to him at all. So he has this like weird extended family as the Batman, more or less. And I'm sure some of that is filling the void from that because he didn't have parents. But yeah, I think that makes him more complex. Okay, so as for better at, as you said, I guess, kicking bad guys' butts. I think this one depends on how you look at it. I kind of felt like most of your argument was, talking about Superman's powers, and if it comes to who's more powerful, hands down, it's Superman, not even close. If it's, you know, your average bank robber on the street, yes, Superman's better. But if we compare them to the super criminals they fight, on a weekly basis, I think now it's a lot closer. First, I would say I think Batman's a better fighter. Uh, Again, Superman's more powerful, but by fighter, I'm talking about what he does with what's available to him. Uh, all the skills he's learned, the weapons he can use, and I think if I were to compare who's better at fighting their own villains, I would actually lean a little towards Batman because I feel he goes more into it with a plan, whereas Superman's more of a punch first, ask questions later guy. You know, the whole there's the whole death of Superman thing where he stopped Doomsday, and they did something 10 years later, where it's the anniversary of his death, and talking about all the destruction that was caused in the wake of this. And obviously, you don't blame it on Superman, but the question arose: could he have taken the fight somewhere else, and there would have been less casualties? Whereas I feel Batman takes that more stealthy approach. Uh, you know, as a detective, and he works everything out that there's less likely to be casualties when he's involved. Although to be fair, he's not fighting Doomsday level, you know, villains every week. Well, though he does take down and fights people who are more powerful than him, not to the extent of Superman or Doomsday or whoever. Uh, which leads to who would win in a fight. It's the whole brains versus brawn thing, and you mentioned that Superman had super intelligence and total memory recall, uh, which are two things I had not known about him. So checked it up on the Superman wiki, and they did say he had genius level intelligence and an eidetic memory. But they also said that because Infinite Crisis, they diminished many of his powers. Now, strength and speed, he's still going to be far beyond Batman, but they say uh, his mental capabilities were curtailed to the point where intelligent humans like geniuses, Lex Luthor, or Batman could possibly outsmart him. Um, which led me to looking through an old comic I had, and I know for every one argument I can make, there are 10 arguments someone can make the other way. But there was one that stuck in my mind where an issue of the Justice League, someone had died, a father died, and Superman, I guess, wasn't able to save him. So he was watching after his son, kind of looking after his son, and he sees his son about fight with like 4 kids, and Superman's about to interfere when Wonder Woman stops him and says, he's got to handle this on his own. And all of a sudden, the kid beats up all the kids, and they realize he's got superpowers too. So the Justice League goes to the kid's mother's house and asks why they didn't mention it. Apparently, the father had gained these powers on a fishing trip, and the son was with him. And she said, I didn't think it was important because he hadn't shown any symptoms of having any powers. But while everyone's talking to the mother, Batman's sitting there playing with the daughter. He has this block and he's like, "Oh, maybe this will fit here." And he hands it to the girl. The girl grabs it, but Batman doesn't let go. So the girl, angry, like, let go. He still holds on to it. She grabs even harder and crushes the block. At which point, they all realize that she has superpowers too, and the mother basically kicks them out. And then there are a couple points where, you know, Superman asks Batman, "How did you know?" Um, and Batman explains how he, you know, noticed pictures of the whole family at the lake, and he said, "Well, it was possible. He thought it was highly unlikely that just the father and son were there, not the whole family." And then another quote from Superman. Uh, so what else? So what else did you learn while the rest of us were standing around looking stupid? So, to me, that's even Superman acknowledging that Batman is more intelligent. So then it comes down to, as I said again, brain versus brawn. If it's a straight out fist fight, obviously Superman would knock his head off. I mean, literally, he can knock his head off. But I just I would tend to give the edge to Batman again. I feel he would come into it with a plan. He would know Superman's weaknesses, whether he's got kryptonite, whether some way to block out the rays of the yellow sun and weaken him even further. Somehow get a hold of magic, which Superman's weak to. Even in that comic, Batman got a hold of this woman's daughter, basically kidnapped this woman's daughter to stop her from uh, killing the person she felt was responsible for her husband's death. So Batman's not above using other people as leverage. Not that I feel Batman would do anything to people Superman cared about, but I think he would use them where I don't feel Superman would go to that level. So I do feel Batman would find some way to defeat Superman. I would also take into consideration the fact that Superman wouldn't kill Batman. Maybe if it was a fight to the death, Superman would just, come right at him and kill him. But like I said, one punch he could knock his head off. But that's not who Superman is. And comics, it's generally the brains that outweigh the brawns. So who's the better hero? I I agree with you. I tend to like the Boy Scout, the guys. I don't necessarily need the dark, broody, flawed guys. I I like the people you feel inspired about. In fact, that's one of the reasons I wasn't crazy about Man of Steel. I don't. I felt we didn't get that sense of awe and wonder, and where we felt inspired by him. And I hope they go more that way in the next movie. Uh, that being said, I think Batman has the better stories. He, while he's definitely darker than Superman, I do respect the fact that he does have a line, maybe a line I wouldn't go to, but a line he wouldn't cross. It's killing or using guns. And I don't want to take it away from Superman's villains, but again, as you said, Batman has better villains. And I think I mean even look at the two comics they first appeared in, Superman's Action Comics. Um, in fact, if you look at the Death of Superman, it's pretty pretty much every page is just one scene. It's pretty much just a punch. Whereas Batman's a detective was from Detective Comics, and I think that's what makes his stories more interesting. That it's less about the fighting and more about the detective part and the brains, and that's what I find more interesting. And I don't know if that makes him a better hero, but it's why I prefer Batman over Superman. Um, so I guess I disagree with you on most of the points of this, Bud, but thanks for listening and goodbye.